So, got it. Oh, good. Here we go. Okay, so I believe we're able to get in here. Ah, and I don't want to watch us here. I want to watch us on this one. Hey, everybody, just figuring some stuff out here. So just give us a second. Oh, dear. I don't know how this is going to go. Is that going to... I don't know if I'll be able to see you, Colin. This is really interesting. So I've not done it this way before. I see you on here. Okay, so just bear with us for a second, everybody. I do see us on live. And what I'm trying to see is, oh, yes. Okay, there it is. Perfect. What it's going to do. Hello, everybody. Thank you so much for being here. We had just a little tiny snafu today. It's no biggie. So we popped over here to just do, we're just doing YouTube today. And it's going to be a little bit of a different screen share. And it looks like we've got everything exactly as it needs to be. I'll double check that we're recording. Perfect. And so we'll just keep going. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's so exciting. We're in some really exciting times. We've had a myriad of emotions happening throughout everybody. And it's really going to depend on where you are. Where are you with your housekeeping, as in your spiritual housekeeping? Where are you mentally and emotionally? So we're having everything from grief and sadness all the way to anger, frustration, and there are a lot of emotions going on with what we're experiencing, and also a lot of lies being created as well as rehashed. So, what say you, Colin? Hello, hello.
Hi, Chaz, and hi to all the listeners. It's great to be with you. Yeah, it's been an interesting week, and it's. I feel it's just more of the same stuff. It just
Yeah,
keeps, and and they've used these what I call holographic inserts and false flags to change people's perceptions. So now the COVID narrative is beginning to unwind, so they have to find a new boogeyman to get everyone distracted from the COVID-19 so they don't actually discover what actually happened. So now you've got
mm-hmm.
this distraction that there's something else happening. And yeah, it's crazy. And I've watched the news and it's really puzzled me why every country in the world wants to get involved with two neighbors having a fight. You know, if you and I were neighbors and I, threw, a, a stone on your roof, why should your other neighbors come and get involved in that? It's between you and I, and that's what we should do. They should put, Zelensky in a ring with Vladimir Putin and let them fight it out for themselves. Why do they have to kill all those soldiers? Why do they have to kill citizens? Why do they have to destroy property? And for what? It's not like
Mm-hmm.
anybody's achieving anything. It's really a distraction. It's designed to cause people fear. It's designed, and also not just fear, but it's designed to create inflation, and to punish people economically because because of the stupidity of President Biden. And I'm afraid to say it. I'm not an American, so I don't really have the right to criticize the man. But he is the worst president I've ever seen in my lifetime.
You have my permission to criticize. Criticize away, because we just don't really have um, any type of representation. Not um, not in the forefront anyway. There's no representation here, and it's almost like, speaking of holograms and poor jobs. It's like I liken him to a cardboard cutout. Like, that's the type of representation we seem to have at this moment. So,
Yeah, and this woke nonsense, the extreme left narrative that they're coming up trying to, pull the wool over people's eyes with is just sad. Really, it's sad. It lacks all the values that I think Americans stand for. And you know, I I am incredulous. I just do not believe that Joe Biden was voted into office. I think there was something nefarious going on, because I can't believe that 80 million Americans actually voted for the man. Because even before the election, I thought to myself, what an idiot. Nothing he said you could take as to be true. And all the promises he made, he hasn't kept one of them. All the things that he said he was going to do, he hasn't done. And instead, he's undermined and sabotaged the whole of the US economy. He's destroyed foreign relations that had been built up with other countries in the world by the State Department. And now he's wrecking countries that he's closely associated with, like Ukraine. His son gets a monthly payout from a Ukrainian oil company. So
mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
this man is sheer evil. That's all I can describe him in. He's just sheer evil. And when you look at Donald Trump, and Biden, when Donald Trump, before he became president, I was not a fan of Donald Trump as a person. I thought he was crass, he was vulgar, didn't have any style. He didn't, and I thought to myself, oh my goodness, this is going to be a disaster for America. And then he came in, and I started watching his rallies before he was voted in, and I thought, well, this man makes sense. He's talking a lot of sense. And you compare Joe Biden with Donald Trump, and they are just like chalk and cheese, really. Biden can't come up with any sensible arguments about anything. He's just like a dictator. He dictates what he feels he wants, and the people must just go along with it. There is no argument, there's no discussion. He doesn't take questions, fully at press conferences. There's very little communication with the American people. And, I quite frankly can't understand how Americans can put up with that crap, because
thank thank you for that. There's a lot of uh, debate here. Obviously, those are really touchy subjects in the States, with whether or not it was, you know, election integrity was tampered with. I am of the thought that it was indeed tampered with. And what's really interesting is I had there's it has affected when we go into the cognitive dissonance, when we go into the idea of what mind control looks like and how long it's been happening, who it's been happening to. Well, everybody, in some way, shape, or form. Very, very, very few are immune to this type of these types of vibrations or this resonance. And so when we go in and look how long this operation has been happening, it's really interesting to watch the different age groups and how they respond and how they've targeted each generation or age group with the words. Like you talk about the woke community, it's really fascinating to watch this because this this brings in a whole, this goes from spiritual based people all the way through religion. It goes through atheists. It goes, I mean, it I feel like they didn't miss one little tiny piece to ensnare any to ensnare a large group into one thought process, if that makes sense. And that's right, you call them woke, and that's exactly what it is. And they think that they're humanitarians, and it's like, this is not a humanitarian project, and those are not humanitarian values and views. And Biden is rolling out, sorry to say, the he's like the currently the face or the cardboard cutout of the satanic agenda. And when you go and back and look at all the other puppets and people pulling the strings for the puppets, it's like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't want to make any comparisons, whether it be, Trump or Biden or anything like that. But, going into like, what the hell is going to be happening here? And you're right, throw a stone on your neighbor's house. But this goes even deeper, and people are starting to see finally the level of the deep state, finally the level of the control, misogyny, manipulations, these kinds of things. And it's like, that landmass is the heart of so many different dark operations. And that's what it comes down to. That's what they're trying to hide, and that's why they're scaring people. And as if the macaroni Rona stuff, shoddy shot, all this stuff, it wasn't enough to scare. It's not enough to scare people anymore, because they're starting to wake up. Now they're like, okay, well, we have to scare you with war. And because we've been in Luciferian rebellions before, because this is the timelines come together, and everything's crashing and coming into people's awareness, their cellular structures are vibrating at a frequency of fear, and they're taking advantage of it. And quite honestly, it starts to really get me going. Okay, your turn.
Yeah, I'm the same. I was yeah this last week on Thursday evening. I was meant to do a show which I cancelled because I was so angry. But it wasn't anger; it was righteous indignation. I mean, sensed at both two things. The one is the cognitive dissonance and gullibility of people, and the second one is how with all the manipulation that's going on. You know, we've just getting to the end of the grand jury, and all that momentum that was being built up about the COVID-19 narrative and what it was, and now is suddenly now being hijacked with some other large event that we are told is happening. I went on to a live picture today of Kiev, and I looked at the camera. It was a live camera over Kiev, and there wasn't any smoke anywhere. There was not a sound of an aircraft. There was not a sound of a bomb going off. It was just people going about their daily lives, normally. And I thought to myself, really, why don't people go and investigate for themselves? You want to see Kiev? Go onto a live stream. There are live cameras all over the world now. If you want to go into Cape Town live, you can go to Cape Town and you can watch Cape Town on a live feed 24 hours a day. And many cities around the world have the same thing. And if you want to know what's going on in Kiev, go onto the live Kiev, the Kiev live stream. So you can actually see for your own self what is going on. So this whole system is just so full of lies, and because of that,
Yeah.
I've decided to do an expose of how deep these lies go. And so I'm going to have a Zoom group meet once a week for 6 weeks, and I'm going to tell them how the universe actually works. And
Mm-hmm.
it doesn't work anything like this planet works. But I'm not going to be speaking about what happens on the planet. I'm not going to be talking about planetary science. I'm going to be talking about the multidimensional structure of the universe, what a space-time continuum is, what a vector and sector is, how one navigates oneself, your thoughts and your emotions through the dimensional spaces, what is the soul and the soul body, and how the soul, is an expression of God, really, and but the thing is, on this planet, we've been lied to, and we told we're sinners, and all are come short of the glory of God, and all are going to hell unless they accept Jesus as their savior, and all that stuff, and that's just a total lie. um, and I was a Bible student for a year, and I studied scripture. And fortunately, my major during that year was church history, and I was horrified, you know, with the history of the the church, the Protestant, the Catholic Church, and then after that,
The
Martin
Ruth,
Luther,
oh, Lutheran, yeah. Mm-hmm.
led the Reformation. Then there were many people who came after him, who spoke the truth, and how, Christianity just dismantled into many, many sects and groupings and different doctrines. I thought to myself, it's just so sad that people have really forgotten what Jesus actually said.
Well, not only have they forgotten, I think that so many, Colin, uh, were fed the wrong information of what he said, and didn't know how to. Don't understand the language. The language was different. Speaking also in parables doesn't make it any easier, right? Um, but they miss the mark and take a lot of things literal, and also, like I said, don't understand the language. So the language was different in a different part of the world, well, from the United States, but also a completely different time. And none of that is ever taken into consideration. And it would be really interesting to have somebody start to like take pieces away. You know, we did a project. We did a project and opened up. It was like in the work we were doing, where we were on the land, doing some grid work. We all of a sudden were bringing in the book of God, and the book of God is not the Bible. The book of God is something completely different. And we were watching the book of God open up. And as it was opening up into the ley lines, it was moving through the bodies, moving through the mechanics of people, and the words were like moving through humanity and beginning to activate. It looked like tattoos when we were seeing it in the field, but just reactivating the communication. It was almost as if we had our language back. We talk about the Tower of Babel, falling and our language being taken from us. And when I saw this happening, I was like, oh my gosh, our language has returned. We are going to find our way out of this. When I saw this, it was like that was the instant that I knew that I really felt that hope and that trust in God and in humanity, that we're going to do this,
Yeah,
and it doesn't mean give up now, but it brought a sense of hope and a sense of trust, trust that in God, that we haven't had in a really long time on this planet.
yeah, we can't trust words, and even actions we can't trust if they're on television. You know, or they're told to us from some narrative, other perspective, because it's so easy to twist words. But even what you see with your own eyes in reality is sometimes very difficult for people to see because they suffer from something called cognitive dissonance. And
Mhm.
cognitive dissonance is the biggest disease on this planet. And I know from before I woke up that how incredulous I was when I was being given this great information. And I was trying to turn it away. I was trying to push it out of my consciousness because I knew that if I brought it into my consciousness, it would demand a response from me.
Mhm.
And and so I tried to get away from it.
Mhm.
There's a very famous poem called "The Hound of Heaven," where this guy tries to get away from God, and then this hound from heaven just chases him wherever he goes. And I felt a bit like that I was trying to run away from the truth because I
Mhm.
just didn't want to face it because I knew if I accepted it, it would demand a response from me. And I didn't know how to do that. So it, there's this thing of, do you believe or do you know? How
Mhm.
committed are you to something, or how do you just believe it? You can believe in something and not be committed to it. And for me, the difference was in making that commitment, not to anybody else, but to myself, and saying, okay, I will commit to this understanding, but it's going to be very difficult for me. I recognized how difficult it was going to be to change my mind because my mind was so indoctrinated with nonsense and rubbish that I'd been fed to all my life that
Yeah.
it was difficult to actually confront the notion that God is everything and everything is an expression of God in one big kind of God soup. Um, it's like your body has many parts to it. It has blood vessels, arteries, lungs, all the organs in your body. And so, what is your body? Are you the organ or are you the body?
Mhm.
And so that this body can contain many expressions of the body, and the whole body is the body. And to me, that's like an analogy of the universe, that everything is an expression of the one body. We are all encapsulated. We are all within that body of universe, this body of life-giving force, and we all working our way, and we are meant to be doing what we are naturally and organically inclined to do, and we are not naturally and organically inclined to kill each other.
Right. Right.
We, we are taught to do that. We are taught how to lie. We are taught all these negative things. So we have to unteach all of that and start learning to be organic within the body, because if the organs reject the body, the whole body dies. And that's what we've created here. We've created a body of evidence that is poisoning our minds, it's poisoning our hearts, it's poisoning our societies. And we can sit back here, I'm in South Africa, and I can sit back and say, well, Ukraine, the people of Ukraine are suffering. Well, tough shit, too bad for them. But is that the right attitude? We should say we are one body on this planet. Everything is interconnected. And how dare anyone order soldiers to go into battle and fight a war that makes no sense, except maybe to the leaders for some obscure reason. And, and it happens over and over and over again. The war in Afghanistan, the war in Iraq, the war in Korea, the war in Vietnam. They just create all these stupid ideas of war, And in a sense, that's inhumane. And
Yeah.
people can't see that. That
Yeah.
it's only when the people stand up and say, "Listen, we're not going to follow these leaders anymore. I am my own leader. I'm a sovereign, eternal being, and I make my own choices about the experiences I want to have, and I do not consent to what's happening." And it's going to take a massive uprising of people to overturn the system and to change it, because and it's people's, if they allow themselves to be directed and guided by their values and have strong values that they believe in and trust, then we can make some progress. But if we are getting our values from the news media, from our religions, from philosophers, from academia, we're going to lose it, because it's
Yeah.
the heart that knows, it's the conscience that knows what's right.
I
Oh,
love this, Colin. I want to bring it back to the organs and bringing it back to the one body, because, one of the things that we're seeing today in this whole psyop is an attack on, it's an attack on really the heart. It's when we look at it organically and we look at it from a body perspective and a mechanics perspective, it's an attack on the heart. It's an attack on the mother principle, and creating that disconnection to keep us in their mind controlled psyop, to be able to continue to feed off of us, to do what it is, whatever it is they need us for. When we go in and look at what else is there, what is in the motherland, so to speak, are things that people can't comprehend. Humanity is not, they have not had to see what is happening there. And so what it is that a war, by creating this war, by creating what it is we're seeing in this psyop, we then are not going to look at the bigger picture. We're going to continue to listen and kneel and bow to our leaders, and then we're going to be really excited and really happy and joyful when we see that everything is being taken care of from the people who started the problem to begin with. And so when we weaken the heart and disconnect humanity from their heart resonance, our connection to God, then it is going to put other pressure on the other organs of the body. So we have to look at the physical body, even though we are a bigger picture than just the physical body. They are attacking our physical bodies and creating malnourishment. Hands down, malnourishment. Look at the starvation everywhere
yeah.
around our world. Look at the level of fear is so intense for humanity that people's kidneys are failing. Our organs process emotions. They process what is happening to us on an etheric level. And if we can't process it in the spiritual, on the spiritual and soul levels, then it's going to come and hit our physical bodies. And so when our physical bodies are being attacked, then it's no different than the war that we're seeing. If you're seeing the war and you're buying into the war, you're experiencing that, well, then your body is experiencing a war as well. And it may move straight to inflation. It may move to organ failures. You may see it in small ways like rashes or sore throats all the time. If you're allowing the war to happen energetically and you're aligning with that, then expect a battle in your body.
Yeah. Yeah, doing the same thing over and over and over again, and expecting a different outcome. That's the height of insanity,
Yes.
really.
Yes. Irina is watching, and she hasn't been able to see us live in a really long time. And she has a question for you, Colin. She says she was listening to last week's conversation, and she's really curious about your hermit time. like, when you were hermiting and learning about really about your soul and your spirit and how to make those connections and bring that forth into the world today. So, do you want to share just a little bit more of what it's like? What was your hermit life like, or what is it like to, I guess, on that level, become a hermit in order to spiritually grow?
Yeah, I didn't really become a hermit in the sense that I was living off the street, um, you know, and living on a park bench, although I slept at a train station once. Um, but it really was listening to my heart and being heart centered and and being so um, doggedly determined to allow for the changes that needed to take place within me in order to fulfill my purpose on this planet. Because I realized the old me, the person that I was before, was a bit loony. He was crazy, and so I kind of set myself apart from people. I like I would have a once a week a barbecue with friends, but then I avoided people for the rest of the week. I had a business. I was doing wallpaper installations, and I'd take the calls, make the appointments, go there, do the installation, and walk away. So I didn't have that much interaction with people per se. I avoided going to malls or place where there was a lot of electromagnetic energy. In fact, on the few occasions I did go to a mall, I felt personally attacked. But I could hear the electricity. I could feel it around me. So it just gave me such an uncomfortable feeling that I just avoided going there. Um, I did attend a couple of group meetings with people. I'm not a group person really, um, because I find within a group you can find some very toxic people and some people who are really nice. And I just wanted to avoid the toxic people. So I did go to some group meetings to meet with other people who were learning, spiritual stuff. But it wasn't a religious group. It was more, there was a group that I belonged to for 2 or 3 years. They were studying something called Colontic science, which I found quite interesting and worthwhile studying. But then that whole Colontic science narrative kind of just collapsed, in my view. And
Yeah.
they started doing some crazy things and saying some crazy things that I just couldn't relate to, so I gave that up. Yeah, I just I stopped having sex on from the 31st of October 2006. Um, and I don't see women as sexual objects. I see them more as magnetic soul beings, which
Mhm.
is a different kind of energy from a masculine energy, and they are complementary one to the other. I don't have a. I used to have a very high sex drive, but I, at first it was difficult to adjust to being a celibate, which I was had become, but I learned to adjust to that. Um, you know, because a lot of one's sexual expressions happens in your thoughts and imagination. And so when I was with women, I made a conscious effort to see them as souls and not as physical objects, as females. Before I was very interested in a woman's appearance, and so on. But then I started to look into the person to see what was behind the facade that they were wearing, behind the makeup
Mhm.
and so on. And so I really tried to see beyond the physical realm in everything, even in daily life. I realized I was expressing myself as a wallpaper installer. I had to drive a car, I had to have a driver's license. I had to have the permits and so on that I needed to be able to do that work. So I just conformed to that because I had to, not because I really had to, but I just felt there was no harm in doing that. Um, but I realized that there were changes taking place within me that made me see the world through a different lens, and I just persisted with that. That's the way I wanted to see the world. I wanted to see the world beyond the physical, and to interpret the physical into a non-physical. So I began to see actions that people were taking or things that were happening around me. Began to see the non-physical things that were happening. Like I've learned how, the mechanics of creation, and that we live on many different levels at the same time, many different levels of consciousness. There's a cellular level, a molecular level, atomic level. So I made a conscious effort to try to understand all of that, and to teach myself. And of course, I had a lot of companionship with my higher self, and I would often have conversations with them. But in a sense, they were conversations I was having with myself, because my higher self is myself in a different time-space continuum. You know,
Right.
so I learned to listen to that still small voice inside me that became my guide and my conscience. And I had to learn how to do things, do the right thing, not to do things right, but to do the right thing. And there's a difference. So yeah, it was a very difficult period, but I'm glad I went through that process, because unless one is prepared to go through that process, you're just going to stay the same as you are for the rest of
Yep.
your life.
Yep. I've seen a lot of people. That's beautiful. Thank you. I've seen a lot of people staying the way that they are. No changing, no, no growth, no thought process difference. Nothing, nothing. It's really, well, it brings you back to, it kind of throws you in for a time loop a little bit when you've moved past that and you see some old friends or family members or something that are, at a level that they just, it's like, I don't know if their feet are stuck in the mud or that's part of their process, or exactly what it is, but it's quite fascinating. The the celibacy piece, this is a really big deal. There's a lot of debate in our community about whether or not you have to be celibate in order to be spiritual. And so I don't want people to misconstrue the idea of celibacy, versus, high thought or high mind, processing or soul processing. But I will say that while you're learning, I have found that it's a really great practice because it offers you the opportunity to get out of the sexual programming and the mind control, the addictive patterning, all of these kinds of things, especially with sexuality. That is one of the things that they target. They target our gender, they target our sex, and they steal a lot of our energy, whether that be from the astral realm or the 3D realm. And so I have found that it was most beneficial to abstain, and really just get to re-know my body, from a spiritual point, as in not a religious spiritual point, but what is it to connect to my higher self, and the way the body vibrates and the way the mind works, the cellular communication, the heart communication. It's a game changer. It
Yeah,
it's different. It's
yeah,
different.
yeah. Like you said, there's a lot of programming around sexuality on this planet, and to get out of that programming is very difficult. So, I'm not celibate for the sake of being celibate. If I met the right person and we got to know each other on a deeper level, and we both agreed that we would like to have some sort of relationship, I would see that relationship as being the important thing, but not the sexual relationship. To me, sex
Hmm.
is just an add-on that one adds onto a relationship. But because of my travels into other dimensional spaces, I've learned that when other beings in other dimensions, higher dimensions, form those kind of relationships, there has to be a contract, and that contract cannot be broken. And what we see on this planet is people make contracts with each other, but they break them, and and that to me is anathema. I will not.
Right.
So I'm not going to get into a relationship if there's the slightest chance that I'm going to break that contract. So
Mm.
I'm just careful, I won't just get into and I've had women, have shown interest in me and they've wanted to have a relationship with me, and I haven't pushed them away. I'm willing to, you know, discuss and let them get to know me a bit better. But generally, I scared women off because of what I know and the experiences I've had.
Well, that's, I would, well, I guess that does, it does kind of freak some people out too. But it's actually, and I've shared this in lives before, but it's quite disturbing when you can see what's attached to people. If you're having an intimate connection and you see like creepy things like siphoning energy, and you can see like, uh, when you can see other things and you see other people's minds and like the holographic inserts or what they're actually picturing in the process, and it's like, oh, it's like, never mind, never mind, never mind, we're good here.
Yeah.
Just like, no thank you.
And many people vampire off other people's energies, and they come and they suck
Yes.
energy away from you. And so if I'm with somebody and I sense that they're trying to suck energy off me, then I get the blank. That ain't gonna happen.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
I don't mind giving my energy to other people, but I don't want them demanding it. It's not on
And
demand. It's there for
yep.
people to enjoy, to have, but I, I just don't like people demanding my energy.
Yeah. Well, it's sacred. I think our energy is sacred, and they actually romanticize or fantasize the idea of vampires. And it's, to me, I think that that's quite telling. They actually sexualize vampires as well, but to show us the type of energies that are most heightened or most sought after. Um, for powering up their own systems. But I always found that really very curious, the idea of what vampirism actually is.
Yeah, and unfortunately, the notion of sex in this planet has got totally out of hand, in my view, because
Yeah.
there's a lot of sado BDSM, you know, sadomasochism. The people associate Some people associate sex with violence. Some people associate sex with torture. Um, and people have these strange notions about sexuality, and to me that's scary. I don't want to be in a sexual relationship where someone's going to try to hit me with a whip while I'm lying on my bed.
That would be horrifying. That would be horrifying. Well, it's a wiring of the brain, and pain pleasure. And, this is something that can be indoctrinated into a child at a really young age. And it gets passed down generally from parents or, ancestry, something like that, when they'll start with, perhaps verbal abuse and then physical abuse. And then you take and put sexual abuse on that. Um, and then things start getting really, really weird. And then the pain pleasure receptors began to act as a failsafe for protection for the body, the mind, and the spirit. And so there's some confusion there. Then that can obviously go into adulthood, and then of course we get into control and manipulation. But I have a friend that has, a friend into all that. Uh, I don't know, I guess master servant stuff, BDSM stuff, and they they put people in cages and on collars, and it just is completely beyond me. Um, anything from like water torture to beating of the flesh is just well, it's satanic. It's satanic. So
Yeah, yeah. I'm going to be doing a series of meetings on Zoom meetings where I'm going to be speaking about things I haven't spoken before about before in my journeys in other space-time continuum. And one of the things I'll be speaking about is relationships between higher dimensional beings, their society, how, how that operates, how they procreate, how they have children, how they teach their children, um, how society works there, because their societies are very different from ours. They don't have mother and father and family. They consider themselves a family. The whole
yeah.
community, is family. So when somebody has a child, there's no mother and father. The whole community is their, responsibility as responsible for the upbringing. So this child can go from one household to another household to get wisdom from each one
Mm.
and can decide where they want to spend the night, having sleep. So it's a much more free society than we have here,
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
I want people to get a glimpse of that so that they can just see how constrained we are in our thinking about
Yeah.
relationships. That we tend to think of a relationship as between a man and a woman, but we don't understand that we're in relationship with everything else all the time.
Yeah.
With the plants, with the insects, with the animals, with the reptiles, the birds, the sky, the clouds. We are in a relationship with all these things all at the same time. And,
Mhm.
and so we've gotten into this notion of narrowing down the scope of our relationships into just a man and a woman. When that is so narrow that it doesn't allow for expansion of the soul, for new
Mm.
experiences, for being having a real experience of being free and what it's like to be free. You know, we have all these obligations that are placed on us and expectations placed on us that we have to live up to, and we have to fulfill our obligations. And to me, after my experiences in higher dimensions, I've begun to understand how crazy people are, how crazy the society is, because there are alternatives. We can
Mhm.
do things differently if we know how, and we can imagine what it's like living in a different society. But because we can't imagine it, so in a way, I'm a way shower into that world, into that universe of understanding that lots of our conceptions that we have here are truly so constraining, and that they don't allow for expansion of the mind
Yeah.
and the soul into each other, because we are so intertwined with each other all the time. When we walk into a room, we see a physical person, but we don't see a group of people all interacting through their souls the soul bodies are around them. It's an energy body. And they are speaking to each other, and the souls are crying out, let us out, let us out, we want to be free. And these stupid humans, embody stupid ideas that are indoctrinated into them, and they just have no concept of what the greater universe is like. So I hope people will really take up that challenge, that I put out to them. And I had a really good response. I had about 370 people like my post, and over 50 or so comments on it. So
Hmm.
yeah, and so I'm going to do this because
Beautiful. I'm excited. I'm excited for people to learn from you because, we don't, when we wake up and we start to understand that there's more to us than what you see right here, just what you see on the cameras, what you're listening to. You wake up to it and you don't understand it. You're like, I know that this is something different. I've never felt this before, but I don't even know where to start. I noticed you had talked about something about going down the rabbit hole, and it's not even about going down the rabbit hole, it's about expanding. We're not looking at conspiracies here, people. We're looking at who and what you are, where you're from, how your mind and heart work together to connect the soul, to expand into the spirit, and eventually master both of those things because they're separate. Working and operating from the soul and operating from the spirit are completely different things. They're different masteries.
yeah,
And then from there, you want to start working into the avatar fields. And, when you're able to work with someone like you, Colin, to understand the mechanics, because there's a science piece here, and it's basic science. We're only confused because the truth has been kept from us. So that's the only reason there's some confusion. It's super easy, and you just have to retrain your heart brain to connect, and it will all start coming right back to you. So
yeah.
I'm excited for people to be able to do this with you. You're doing that on Wednesdays?
Tuesday.
Tuesdays.
Yeah.
Tuesdays.
It's the same time as the show, 8, 8 p.m. South African time, 10 a.m. PST. Um, I'm looking for someone to co-host it, so if you'd like to co-host it, I'd be very grateful.
Good. Yeah, I'll put that out there. I have sessions. I'm booked out like weeks, so I wouldn't be able to do that. But if anyone has great internet stabilization and wants to host an anchor for Colin, that would be amazing. So you can inbox either one of us, and we'll see, how it feels to have a conversation together and what it'll look like going live together. So again, that's going to be Tuesdays. So if somebody has availability and has been wanting to do this, maybe isn't ready to jump out on their own yet, availability Tuesday Pacific Standard Time at 10 a.m. Or 8 o'clock in African time, South African time, and that's about the same for UK too, isn't it?
There's a time difference, depends on, what time of the year, but it's 1 or 2 hour time difference. Yeah. Because they have
Yeah. Okay.
daylight saving time in the UK, and they switch over from one time zone to another. Yeah,
Yeah.
so it's only a 1 hour difference. And then Australia is a little difficult because 8 p.m. for them can be a very early time. So Australians are,
Hmm.
if people are from Australia and they want to know, I'm going to I'm going to record the sessions. I'm going to post them to my Patreon page. I don't feel led to post it onto Facebook because I'm afraid that Facebook might ban it, or they
Yeah.
might misuse the information.
Yeah.
It might create misinformation about the information. So my Patreon, it costs $3.99, and I'll do this every week for 6 weeks, and maybe ongoing after that if there's people still want to hear. Yeah.
Beautiful. That's amazing. So, looking for an amazing host, $3.99. This is different. Let's see. Irina says, is this different from the monthly Zoom you started in January? Yeah, I think those are different classes. Yeah,
Yeah, but all my students will be invited as well, and they will be sent the recordings. So, if someone's on my student class, they will certainly get the recordings, and they're welcome to watch live. But I'm doing a separate a meeting once a month for my students and my Patreons as well. And that has to do with explaining the courses that I've been doing and trying to help people to understand how to put all the information together so that
beautiful.
it all fits together. Yeah.
I love it. Beautiful. Oh, what an amazing talk today. We never know where it's going to take us. And I think that's the beauty of it. So I think this was a beautiful chat. And hang tight for those of you that want to do the declaration. We're still doing the declaration. I think we're on week 5 or week 6 out of 12. I can't remember where we are. So for those of you that want to do that, we'll see you soon. So look for the writings of kylanjoe.com. You'll be able to find his Patreon from there as well. And awesome. I hope you guys have an amazing, amazing rest of your Sunday. Much love to you.
Bye.
Bye.